Okay, Anthropic forges partnership with NVIDIA and Microsoft, leading to cloud models now live across all top clouds, all three of them.
Gemini hits the market and makes its highly anticipated debut, along with Nano Banana Pro, which everyone loves.
And Meta launches SAM3D to create 3D objects from 2D images, and Grok launches 4.1.
Lots of news from Microsoft at Ignite. They launched FoundryIQ, FabricIQ, WorkIQ, Agent Factory, and a whole lot more.
And Microsoft also launched first AI browser for enterprises called Edge for Business, and Manus has their own browser operator. That and more. Stay tuned for a quick introduction. Greetings. Welcome to the AI Files podcast. You're looking to stay up to date on the AI. This is the podcast for you. I'm Shadab Hussain. I'm the director of AI at Microsoft, and I'm your co-host.
Hello, everybody. Jaime Basilico, as you know already. I'm the other co-host here for the AI Files. My day job is a data and AI technical specialist and architect. And as a reminder, please note this is not an official Microsoft channel, so the views and opinions expressed by myself and Shadab are our own and do not represent the views of Microsoft.
So, Jimmy, this week, Jeff Bezos actually was in the news. He is reportedly returning to the trenches as the co-chief executive of new AI startup project Prometheus. And this project Prometheus is basically AI for the physical economy. So, like generating the AI object. And this is now a new trend, right? I mean, the World Labs has done something. Yann LeCun is also now departing Meta to actually launch their own AI research startup focusing on the AI for physical world. Basically, everybody's saying that, okay, AI for LLM, whatever it was, language prediction is over. Now the next step is basically AI for the physical world, how to interact with that. That's what they want to train.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Bezos is not a technologist. It's not like I think of him like with Zuckerberg or anybody else. But what is he really good at? He's really good at process. He's really good at business. And, I look at this as, where has AI really made its inroads in the last year and a half? It's been in around the developer agent space, obviously, all these things of vibe coding. So now it's about how do we take that into the other industries? And, who else knows the manufacturing spot better than Jeff? Because he built Amazon. And when you think about what Amazon is, it's how do you do distribution? How do you do manufacturing?
That's true.
Tied to that base. So I'm excited to see where this goes, because this is what I think is the next logical steps. How do we take AI into these different industry spaces?
That's true, Jamie. Well said. Actually, Jeff Bezos is known for his business acumen, right? I mean, he has a famous quote saying that your margin is my opportunity, and that's how he built actually Amazon. By the way, you talked about the technical prowess of Jeff Bezos. You're right. I mean, that's why he has another co-chief executive. His name is Vic Bajaj. He used to be actually part of the Google Verily, the life sciences, the business or the startup, you can say. He's going to be the another chief executive, co-chief executive, leading the technological part of it.
Yep, it's got a good right-hand person.
Okay. What else, Jamie? I heard a lot of buzz around the Anthropic as well this week and Microsoft.
Yeah, so definitely this one hit the news, and I'm excited about it. So there's been a strategic partnership announced between NVIDIA, Microsoft, and Anthropic. So it kind of goes like this. There's going to be investments, $10 billion and $10 billion from NVIDIA, $5 billion from Microsoft. This is one of those things where this partnership, Anthropic is going to run some of their capabilities for building models on Microsoft Azure. NVIDIA is going to be supplying the chips. So it's sort of these, we're giving you money to invest in the company, but then you're going to go and purchase back resources from our company. So it's sort of the same type of deals that we've been seeing over the last 6 months or so for these major announcements, lots of money being dumped in to these different companies, but it's sort of, I'm going to run, here's the capability to use the tools, and here's the hardware to go along with it. So it's a perfect triumvirate between these three companies. What it means for like layman's people, we're really the benefits of it, because now with this new partnership comes the ability to run the Anthropic Claude models on Azure, specifically through the Microsoft Foundry space. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. And now Claude models are going to be a better better, bigger exposure to more developers, more users.
True. Claude was already actually now the leading enterprise business. They've actually taken over OpenAI when it comes to the enterprise and the businesses. OpenAI is still, by distance, rules the consumer sector, but for the business, Claude has already taken over earlier this year. By the way, let's talk about some of the AI in the content. TikTok will now let you choose how much AI generated content, or I would say AI slop, you want to see. AI slop is everywhere. And I browse so much YouTube shorts. I'll not tell you where, but I browse so much and I tired of seeing so much AI generated content, right? And it's getting so realistic. Sometimes you have to really, is it real? Is it not? Like, it's seriously, the lines are blurred. Okay. So I think this setting will help. It's called AIGC, AI generated content setting, where you can say that, okay, you don't want to see much, or you want to see, you can tolerate it, right? Whatever. You can define, and then TikTok will accordingly serve you that content. They also have actually labeling, right? They have a AI editor where whatever you generate using that, it will have a label. And it also uses these C2 P, that content labeling, right? The watermark. But the problem is when people download and re-upload, they can actually remove those label, and that's why those watermarks are not very useful. So it's trying to do its own encrypted invisible watermark so that it cannot be removed, things like that. So it's a challenge that all these content platforms are dealing with right now on how to control. YouTube is like full of AI slop right now. I would say probably more content AI generated now than actually human generated at this time.
Love how you call it slop. I agree. Sometimes there's just a lot of stuff out there, and content may not be the best.
Yeah. By the way, I mean, not for always a wrong reason, but it can be very helpful as well. For example, Amazon's Prime Video is going to generate using AI video recaps for some of the TV shows, particularly its originals. So that would be helpful for people to catch up, and like without giving away too much, without the spoilers, it will try to actually help you catch up. Like maybe 1 minute AI recap for a 1 hour episode. Not bad.
Yeah, no, definitely not bad at all. I mean, we're seeing the infusion of these AI generated tools and making it more commonplace for the things that we do. So speaking of commonplace, as we mentioned, Google made its long waited ado for the next model. And it really wasn't that long ago that they introduced Gemini 2.5 Pro. So now we have Gemini 3. So, ground up new model. This model is breaking all of the leaderboards. Literally anything that you look at, things like the MMLU, it's leading across the board. LM Arena, it's got the highest Elo score that's out there. So this model is by far the most capable model that any foundational lab has actually put out. Gemini 3 is so good that it leads every benchmark, I think, except for one, maybe two. And do you know who holds that spot? And it's on the SWE. It's Anthropic. So every benchmark except for one, Gemini 3 holds the leader. So real quick, what is Gemini 3? Again, state of the art reasoning model. It does multimodality, and it's not just files of like Word docs or PDFs or images, but it can actually use as input videos. So little teaser. If come back and watch one of the snackables that we'll have out there as well. We'll go through Gemini, and I'll actually show use of video files and the things that you can get out of it. So ground up, multimodal. It's also great for an agent or agentic platform. And with that, they've woven in a bunch of different tools. Some of that we've talked about recently, but this goes back to Vertex and their AI Studio, just being able to rapidly build prototypes of applications, which leverages the Gemini 3 model. Obviously, it's got advanced tool capability, being able to just reason over large sets of different capabilities or different tools that are intertwined to do long-running tests, which is important because when you start to think about enterprise systems, enterprise agents, you need that. And as I mentioned already, top of the leaderboard. So one of the things that, you could probably get any and all of this information from any different source. They're going to tell you how great Google and Gemini 3 is, but I go back to, you listen to this podcast maybe on YouTube right now or through audio only. Why should you care? What's in it for you as you think about, all right, so what? Gemini 3's out, tops all these leaderboards. What is that really going to be doing for me, right? So let me break this down into a couple different reasons from a business standpoint, non-technical. Number one is this turns all the things you do with AI from I'm going to call it like a Q&A toy into let me do real things engine. So if you think about this, the last generation of AI was really like a smart intern that you had to constantly prompt. But Gemini 3 is more like this junior project manager that you could actually have it own a workflow from end to end. So, think about it this way. Gemini 3 really focuses on this agentic behavior, being able to do multi-step planning and use tools, but do that over a long time horizon, which is important. So you think of it this way, in practice, AI that can read for a full year's worth of your operational data, make some decisions off of that, and then keep executing workflows around that without wandering off in like, oh, here's a shiny thing. So it's actually going to go and do that task. So think about it this way from a business impact, better automation for real life business workflows. Reason number two, I call this prompt gymnastics. Think about what you had to do to get these models to do what you wanted. So you no longer have to do these elaborate prompt or do this babysitting of what it is. So the goal here is that it could, I'm not going to call it magic in what it does, but it thinks about what you need in the prompt. And just like you'd ask a task of your colleague to just do something and then move on with your own task, that's kind of the way you think about what Gemini 3 is delivering. So Google really positions Gemini 3 as a deep reasoning and better understanding of your intent. So I don't have to actually scaffold a very complex prompt because it's going to know what I want to do. Obviously, it's explicitly tuned for less psychopathic. So, it's not going to just revert back to you like, oh, this is what I think you want to hear. It's actually going to play a devil's advocate, being able to give you different sides of it. So from a business impact, it's fewer retries, less things that I need to do around the prompt, and just being more trustworthy on the output that it's giving back to you. Another reason is that this model can actually see everything that your business cares about. So Gemini 3 is really built for the messiness and the reality of what is in enterprises today, everything from text, images, videos, all thrown into that same quote unquote proverbial blender. So it does this by really being truly multimodal, and it does take advantage of this 1 million token context window that Gemini has. So I could throw into that proverbial blender all these different things. And, while it's not infinite, I could fit more into that. So the business use case here is I could upload training videos, manuals, call transcripts, and have that Gemini system answer questions, summarize things all from it. Again, little teaser in the Snackable that hopefully you'll go watch. One of our past AI files, videos that we had on real-time audio, actually sent it up to Gemini and asked it to analyze it and also tell me where we can improve upon that. That's something that's super powerful because you weren't able to do that before with just throwing a video up. You had to do multiple steps to actually do text or speech to text and try to get synopsis off of those things and then send it into a large language model. This does it right off the bat. Reason number 4 is think about it's in use where your employees probably are already today. Think of this as from a change management perspective, like, oh, here's another tool that I have to use, to now Google surfaces up Gemini in the places that people are already using it. Here's one cool one, which I don't know if people knew about, but Gemini 3 is powering the AI mode in Google search. So I can actually toggle on that says, hey, do a AI-based search, and Gemini is going to be doing that. Same token, obviously you've got Gemini, the chat tool, but I mentioned before, you've got things like Vertex, the Gemini Enterprise, you've got Gemini or the Google AI Studio. So all these things are rolling out, especially if you're a Google customer already, you're going to see this show up in so many different things. So it's deeply baked into Google, everything from workspaces to search to just overall the cloud. So it really becomes the default AI brain for all the things that you're using. I'll give you another reason. Reason number 5, it's really around the stronger together story and around governance. So if you're in a regulated industry, the question isn't just is it clever? It's how can we defend what it's actually creating? And if you have to go in front of your own auditors or whoever's doing that, you could actually provide that. So Google is certainly positioning Google 3 as its most secure model yet. But you could also run that through its frontier safety frameworks and be able to do external evaluations of what's actually coming out of this. So for enterprise also that's using Vertex AI or Gemini, this plugs into the existing Google enterprise cloud governance tools in terms of the stack, everything from logging, data residency, and all those other things that you care about. Last but not least, economics. This model is more capable, but it's in line with what the existing pricing are. So everything from $2 million, $2 per million input tokens and $12 per million output token. That puts it in the ballpark of everything else. And with the ability to be a better model, that's on par for the same price. And here's the real kicker: since I don't have to do multiple retries, I don't have to do multiple tools. Remember what I said before about video? I actually have a lower cost because I'm doing all that within one tool itself. So those are all like 6 different business reasons why you probably want to go take a look at Gemini. From a developer standpoint, I'll give you a couple things. One, it's a drop-in upgrade. So if you're already using Google and their Google stack, not that much different to change. It's a better agent coding than it was in 2.5, and 2.5 was pretty good in and of itself. Your multimodal apps become simpler to build because, again, it's baked in there. It shows up in the developer tools that you're already using, and it's just great at an overall multimodal toolkit. So those are some developer reasons. Gave you 6 very strong business reasons why you probably want to look at Google at Gemini 3. But I think of it this way. Yeah, it's got higher scores on benchmarks, but it's all about how am I going to use this in the business? And the real question is it best in class? The answer is yes. And it really then boils down, where am I going to use this in my workflows? And how would a more capable model that's more agentic actually fit into that to move the needle that I have in business? So definitely Gemini 3 is worth a serious look.
I think that's a really good way to put it, Jamie, all the different reasons that you cited, why this makes a difference. It's just amazing, right? Gemini 3, the way it's ruling the charts right now, it even got like 47% on the last humanity exam, which is the highest so far, and it's pushing the envelope on that. And it's also LM Arena. Google models are now pretty much topping the chart. In fact, in some of the lists, OpenAI is not even in the top 10, right? The script has flipped actually
Yeah,
compared to like last year.
Yeah, it's amazing to just look at the trajectory of where Google was in the last 18 months. It's sort of like, where is Google to now? It's like, wow, Google's everywhere. So it's just a testament to what they've been able to do in that short period of time.
Yeah, which tells me that, that means that anybody can do anything anytime. The
True.
next year it could be very different chart, right? It's just like who gets their cards in the order. But yeah, Google is always capable of doing that. Anyway, another thing that also came out from Google was anti-gravity. No, it's not a rocket ship. It's actually a agentic IDE, essentially. You can use the agents to plan the task and let the agents run the planning and then execute the task, etc., for you to develop. But it's an IDE, which actually Google has actually launched. It's available on all the major platforms. I believe, Jamie, did you get a chance to try this at all so far?
Not yet. It's on my to-do list for this weekend, though.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't also, but it seems like it's based on the VS Code. And it's kind of like Gemini. You also get some free credits to actually use the Gemini models to help, do this, like basically the agentic led. Um, is it going to compete against, let's say, GitHub Copilot? And is that what the positioning? I'm not entirely sure. Where does it sit in the landscape?
Yeah, it's. I don't see it as directly against Copilot. To me, it's going after a slightly different set of users because it makes it easier to develop those agent workflows, but not from a pure development standpoint. I'm going to hold my true thoughts yet until I actually get my hands on it. But just reading some of the things that others have posted on their experiences, it's in a slightly different camp.
Yeah, this week was so much came out. I think it's one of the busiest, most packed, probably. It's just unbelievable, right? We are trying to scramble to actually cover everything in this episode. That's why we are going to skim. But Jamie is going to actually deep dive in some of those topics and have separate episodes as shorts to actually go a little bit more technically deep. Let me move on to actually the another news. Again, Meta launched their own, uh, the 3D models like SAM3D. It's basically 3D reconstruction for physical world images. So what happens is that you can actually feed it the physical like 2D images and videos, and then what it can do is it can actually extract the objects out of it, and then you can basically extract that and examine that, turn it, rotate it, and place it and move it around, right? So what I did is I actually put my own image. So when you do, I put my own image to extract, and then what it did, it basically created a 3D object which you can see on the side. I look so weird, right? A naked model of mine there basically. But that this is exactly the kind of model it will create out of the 2D image. And you can do that. You can do that like with so they have two versions. One is for the objects and other is for the body. So there is a human body, it can actually generate these kind of models out of it. And then you can do ton of things with it, right? You can imagine that what kind of things we can do. A lot of application of this is for the robotics, imaging, for VR, AR kind of use cases. So you can extract the object. One of the things is that they're talking about is that you can, using those glasses and using this model, you can actually pick the objects, let's say furniture and other things, and then move them around in the room to see how that appears, right? So I think that is why they are developing this capability. Here is another example of a this is a template that they already have. You can play with it. It's free. Actually, they have a playground called Segment Anything, and there you have the template, or you can upload your own images and play with it, and you can see that how it actually extracted those different human bodies. Right now you can't do a lot, but this is basically an extraction of those 3D objects. Of course, there are some limits like pixel resolution and things like that, but this is a beginning. um,
Hmm,
One of the things is that it's a prompt-able architecture, so it will allow you kind of an interactive control and segmentation that you can do.
interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of advancements going on in not only video generation, but then 3D realism. As we talked to even last episode around building 3D worlds, it's now how do we model the people in a 3D like based environment, which has tons of different use cases associated with it.
Yeah. And Jamie, in another news, you talked about this anthropic models being available in Foundry, and I know you are a happy kid because you love playing with the anthropic models and even the Google, right? You basically play with all kind of models. They are available in the Foundry, but I want to actually draw some little bit distinction. Sometimes like not it's so fresh and so new that just to differentiate how it is essentially distinct from the other models in the Foundry. So one of the thing is that it's available in the Foundry, but you have to buy it from the marketplace, right? So it's deployed. It's still a third party model. It's not a first party Azure Direct model yet. It's a beginning of the partnership as Microsoft has invested. Now, Microsoft also has become the only investor in both the OpenAI and Anthropic, by the way. Nobody else has that distinction from the hyperscale, but that this is a beginning of the partnership. It's not a fully mature stage right now, but at this point of time you have to do it from the Microsoft marketplace and then deploy that in the Foundry. You still get an integration and everything. It's just a little bit different ways that at the beginning. The other thing is that so it is limited right now to the APIs, pay-go model. You don't have the provision throughput, things like that, but that will over time it may change. Fine tuning is also not available. As I said, it's just a beginning right now in two regions only, US West and US East too, at this point of time. But the thing is that another important thing is that the Microsoft has their own Foundry, the model router in the Foundry. Model router was basically an abstraction, a wrapper on the different models so that it can choose accordingly based on the complexity of the query and the requirement of the query and the level of depth it requires. It can choose the appropriate model. And that's what the model router is. It actually helps you save cost and time. It can save up to actually 50% of the cost, and it can be 40% faster response. And it initially it worked on GPT, then it included other Azure Direct models, like you can have the DeepSeek and some of the other models as well. And now it also includes the new version, also now includes the Claude models. So Claude models can also, so it will automatically choose it, right? You don't control that choice, but it will automatically pick. based on the Anthropic models or GPT model. Just remember, Anthropic models are really good when it comes to the coding. It is also very good for from a the analytical part of it. And the GPT models are really good when it comes to the like conversation, creativity, and all those kind of things. That's where generally it kind of differentiates and break down the query and then accordingly choose.
Hmm. Really, definitely really powerful, especially as we start to just think about what how you want to optimize the different route paths of whether or not you're dealing with chat or some agents, and not having to deal with that directly and just letting a router do it. It brings in, certainly easier things to do from a coding, and then also potentially cheaper. So like we said, there's a ton of announcements that came out of Ignite this week, which was the premier Microsoft event. Obviously, there were a lot of things around AI. We could spend 2 hours just going through all those. Definitely not going to spend that amount of time right now, but I'll give you a couple of highlights of some of the things that are what I would call rather important from some of those bits of news. So first off, as we were just mentioning, Foundry is no longer called Microsoft Azure or Azure AI Foundry. It's Microsoft Foundry. So with that, there are new capabilities that are being introduced. Some of these are preview. First one here is around Foundry tools, which brings in a unified MCP or model context protocol set of tools. So anything and everything that you need from a model context is right there. It also brings in logic app connectors. And again, there's over 1,400 different connectors, everything from how do I connect into Salesforce, SAP, HubSpot, ServiceNow, and it does that as MCP tools. So the agents can now act on the behalf of that interconnect just by using those MCP tools. There's built-in tools for doing things like speech, translation, voice, intelligent document processing, all there, and they ship as MCP servers out of the box within Foundry. So, think of this. Why does this matter? Well, it's really about tool layering. I'm able to pick the best tools via these open standards through MCP to be able to do that. So that's number one. Second thing is around the Foundry agent service. So this has been there since the day one of Azure AI Foundry with the agents, but now there's the ability for hosted agents, greater memory capabilities around what is controlled, and multi-agent workflows. So specifically, hosted agents is I can build a set of agents within something like the agent framework, a code-first environment framework, and then deploy that to Foundry. And Foundry is going to run that in its own set of containers. So now I don't have to worry about managing and running those agents. I don't have to worry about how do I auto scale the identity or just the observability and eval of that agent. It's all handled by the Foundry agent service out of the box. It also supports multi-agent workflows. So I can start to build workflows, multi-agentic systems between those hosted agents. So that actually opens up the possibility to have agents call different agents from different platforms as well. I mentioned built-in memory for persistence, doing secure agent for the context of what's in there. So that's all built in. The other thing too is that it is framework agnostic. I know that we talked about this before, but semantic kernel and autogen are now combined into a new framework called Microsoft Agent Framework, but it doesn't stop there. The new agent service inside of Foundry supports LangGraph, Crew AI, and also the OpenAI Agents SDK. So again, being agnostic for how I want to build and deploy those agents and have it be run automatically through that service. Last but not least, there's also integration between this Agent 365 and M365 itself. So I can build these Foundry agents and then tie them directly into Microsoft 365 apps using the Agent 365 orchestration tools. So again, powerful. Why it matters is that I could build these agents wherever I want to, and then run them in production through a production-grade enterprise capable environment through the Foundry agent service. One last thing, and again, like I said, we could talk for hours on this one, just in terms of what was at Ignite, but FoundryIQ, this is really the knowledge layer. So before, that you could bring in quote unquote data, but you had to, worry about how am I amassing that. So what this is, it's a fully managed knowledge store system that is really a next generation RAG or retrieval augmented generation tool designed to work directly with agents. So the context or the thought process here, it's a universal context layer that understands where I need to connect my data. So this works alongside of what we call WorkIQ, which is part of Microsoft 365 Copilot, and also works in conjunction with FabricIQ, which brings together semantic models, ontology, and couples all that together. So now these agents that you're building with inside of Foundry, no matter what you're doing, can understand the context of that data because it's coming through this layer. So it's one knowledge base that could tie into Azure Data Services, the data that's within the M365 graph and SharePoint. It could tie back into OneLake through the FabricIQ, as well as the web through Bing Search. So the core underpinning technology here is Azure AI Search, and it's got this built-in agentic retrieval that allows for query planning, iterative search, and just overall reflection on what type of data is being used. So again, why does this matter? It really acts as the brains and the context of the data side for what's coming into Foundry to work with those agents. So it's this one-stop shop, if you will, for how do I bring knowledge into the agents that I'm constructing. So
I think this deserves an applause.
I forgot about those things, yeah.
Particularly this Foundry IQ that you talked about, I also had some brief discussion with the customer actually this morning. This is actually really, really very useful because for multiple reasons. First of all, you have, let's say, multiple sources. You want a holistic result. You don't have to make multiple connector calls, okay, and have multiple connectors going out to the sources and bringing. You do basically one call, okay, one API. It basically includes the Foundry IQ basically becomes an abstraction on all those sources that you want. Secondly, it is an agentic retrieval itself. It is built actually on the Azure AI search, so it can get you an agentic retrieval. It can get you 33% more, I believe, something like that they have come out with a number that it can give you more relevant responses. So it is actually really, really a game changing. It's not just a rebranding of something. It is a game changing data layer for your agents. It solves a lot of issues, and you don't have to do a lot of engineering now. Use this, and then you can use this. Once you build this kind of a semantic layer, you can use it in many things. You can Fabric IQ can be used in Foundry. Foundry IQ can be used in the Copilot Studio. So that way, it's actually pretty game changing stuff.
Yep. Yeah, and like I said, there's so much to cover here. What also was introduced was a control plane within inside of Foundry to manage, the use of agents, the observability of it. Obviously, also security tied into Defender. But then there's also the ability. Another thing that was announced was Foundry Local, so being able to run the Foundry agents on the edge. Being able to actually do this within your cloud and the edge platform, and that just obviously opens the door for a lot of different areas. All those things I just mentioned are preview tools. So again, this will evolve over the next couple of months, more likely into 2026. But these are definitely, new ways of thinking about harnessing data, harnessing agents, and then controlling them at the same time.
Awesome. One more news. Jaime, XAI launches Grok 4.1. It looked to me like everybody was trying to compete this week and just make sure that they steal some sort of a limelight from each other. Right?
Yeah.
Just everybody, except Amazon. I think everybody was actually in the mix. Anyway, so the Grok 4.1, of course, it has already declared that Elon Musk is the best of all ever. Um, there was some controversial going on about its response, but it's always going to be in the news because of Grok, the purpose behind the Grok, where it can let loose some of the guardrails, etc. But it is also determined to be more fluidic, more like better at reading nuance and stylistically more aware and more culturally nuanced in text generation. So overall, better in terms of the conversations and comprehension, etc. It also comes in two mode, thinking mode, and there is a standard mode, of course, for the faster response.
Yep.
It was actually doing pretty well, particularly on the Alam Arena, etc. It was actually leading right below the Gemini 3, actually. So it had a strong opening, I would say.
Yeah. So I've mentioned this already, but I'm a paid subscriber for both OpenAI, Gemini, and Grok, and I've been using Gemini 3 and 4.1 Grok this past week, and I'm pleasantly surprised on how well the new 4.1 model is in Grok, and I use it to do some comparisons on some of my more complex thinking things, and it's up there. So yeah, it's pretty good. I like it.
Yeah, pretty good. And not to miss some of the browser wars, basically Microsoft has declared that it has the first AI browser for the enterprises. Basically, Edge for Business is your first AI browser for the enterprise. Mustafa Suleiman posted about this, and he talked about why it is. It has an agent mode, for example. It can act on your behalf through multi-step workflows like booking travel and all those kind of things, filling the form. The other thing is like it when you start with that as a landing page, you get daily briefings, you have multi-tab reasoning, so it can reason across the different tabs that you have open. You don't need to go personally to them. It can analyze the content across up to 30 open tabs. It can search your history with natural language. You also have like YouTube summarization, so you don't need to watch through the entire videos. It can actually summarize, because Copilot is kind of inbuilt into that, so it can summarize the whole thing, and answer questions about that. It's in basically private preview. Public previews are coming up, and it has a different icon. There is actually a business bag in the icon. I mean, you and I already have that version, Jamie. One of the thing about this is that it can essentially segregate between your personal and the work. So business version is basically Entra ID enabled, and you can segregate. A personal version can be separate, where you can browse the personal content without mixing the two. It's just in fact, there's a separate icon for the edge for the personal stuff, so you can have both the versions in parallel running without mixing the business and the personal. um, by the way, Manos is a company that actually builds agent, not coding agent. Their goal is to build a general agent. Agent can do anything, right? That's what they went viral earlier this year as well. They also have something similar, but they say that you don't need another browser. You need a browser operator, and they have a kind of an extension that you can actually download. You can go to their site, download that extension, and then with that extension, it can then become an operator on your current browser. So um, it's another approach, but browser wars and control of the browser, and enabling you with a lot of content in the browser, because browser is basically a gateway to the everything that people do, and that's why the browser has become such an important battlefield.
Hmm. Interesting. Like I said, as we started out, a lot of new announcements, a lot of new capabilities brought to everybody this week, and I know I'll be doing a little bit of playing over the weekend.
Enjoy. Bye, Jimmy. Bye, everyone.
Later. See you.